So look, I've got a load of snow that's been ploughed and it's kind of blocking off my fence, blocking off my gate. I'm gonna have to clear that. Welcome to Sam's Russian Adventures and welcome to a snowy April. It's a bit weird. I've been ill for the entire week and this is the first time I'm actually leaving my house for the whole week. It's a bit strange. I'm starting to get cabin fever and we've had snow. It hasn't snowed like the whole winter pretty much, and then middle of April and it decides to snow. This is Russia for you. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about British habits that I've lost since moving to Russia. Now the chances are that when you move to another country you might lose your habits that you had because you almost become a different person. It's a strange one. I came here about 20 years ago, and when I came here there was no WhatsApp, there was no kind of video chatting. The only way for me to chat with my family and friends back then was to use one of these phone cards. And I don't know if you know these phone cards that you buy in the, I don't know if you can still buy them. You used to buy them in like a post office. You'd call like a huge number and then you'd wait for it to, you know, get through, and then it would ask for the password. You put the password in, then you dial your phone number and there'd be like a really bad connection and then it might get through. And so because of this, because of coming to Russia, and this whole not having the smartphone thing really made me lose contact with a lot of my friends, with not, I guess, unless they were close family members. When I moved to Russia, it was almost like there was this void of who I was and then suddenly becoming a different person. And so I kind of like lost who I was, what I was about. My hobbies and my lifestyle back in the UK were kind of left behind. And so I lost a lot of my habits, I guess, because Russia was got a completely different place with loads of new information, new customs, new things, new lifestyle, and I had to kind of learn the Russian lifestyle. Now because you've got access to the internet and to smartphones and all that kind of stuff, perhaps if you come to Russia you won't lose that kind of history of who you were as a person before you came here, because obviously information is easily accessible now. The world now has become a much smaller place, hasn't it? And information is everywhere. I always look back to when I was at school and think we only had like 4 TV channels and magazines. That's all we had for information, and the radio, right? And so if you wanted to learn a new skill or a new hobby, well, how would you go about that? Whereas now, in the information age, information is at your fingertips, isn't it? Or even not at your fingertips, you can just ask and you'll be given the information. So the first habit that I lost when I moved to Russia was drinking tea with milk. When I first came here and I'd go to a cafe and ask for a cup of tea, they wouldn't even think about giving it with milk. And I saw that all the other Russian people would drink tea without milk. And so I started to drink tea without milk as well, and then I got used to it. And now I don't even want milk. It's weird. Now tea with milk seems weird. It seems strange. It doesn't really seem like tea anymore. I know that masala tea is really popular, right? And that's tea with milk. Of course, in the UK, everybody drinks tea with milk, and unless you specifically ask for tea without milk, then you're going to get milk in your tea. If you go to your friend's house, they're going to say, "I'll put the kettle on," and they'll go and make a cup of tea, and they'll just put milk in it without thinking, because that's how people drink tea there. And so now when I go to the UK, I've got to make sure to say to people, yeah, I'll have a cup of tea, but don't put any milk in. The next habit that I've lost is complaining about the weather. Now, I do talk about the weather. Even in this video right here, I've talked about the weather, but in Russia, people don't complain about the weather. It's a very interesting thing. People will say there's no bad weather, there's just not the appropriate clothing. And so every weather is good. I had a friend that used to say, "Oh, it's raining, yeah, it's good for the fields," or "Oh, it's snowing, yeah, it's good for the land," or "Oh, it's hot, yeah, it's good for the land." And it's a weird one in Russia that people don't complain about the weather, I guess because they are used to having lots of different extremes, and so they can adapt to all different types of weather. And this is something that's really interesting about Russia, is you can arrange to do something with your friends. And I give this example that if you arrange to have a barbecue, if it's really cold, you still have the barbecue. If it snows, you still have the barbecue. It doesn't matter, there's no excuses. People are prepared to adapt to any weather. And so complaining about the weather is a really British thing. The roads and the weather. Now, Russian people do complain about the roads as well, but not the weather. The next thing that I don't do anymore is eat toast. In the UK, toast is really popular. Marmite on toast, really popular. But in Russia, toast isn't really a thing. Now, I've got a toaster, but the thing is, the bread in Russia isn't really made toast size. And the only kind of toast sized bread, that kind of square bread used for toast, isn't very good. It's a bread that is like, it's called American sandwich. And the bread is basically something that, I don't know, seems to never go off, and you can buy it. It lasts like maybe 2 months before it goes out of date, which is a bit weird. So I don't think you can really class it as bread. So now I don't have bread, I don't have toast. Now, obviously I'm on a keto diet anyway, so now I wouldn't be having toast. But in the UK, spaghetti on toast or beans on toast is a really popular quick food that people make. Whereas in Russia, I think you can get Heinz baked beans, but yeah, beans on toast, spaghetti on toast, and just jam on toast or whatever, not really a thing. You can get those toasted sandwich makers as well, but again, because the bread isn't really very good in that kind of square size, people don't really have toasted sandwiches either. The next habit that, well, I've almost forgotten it, and I still use it with my English friends, but not with my Russian friends anymore really, is stupid sarcastic humour. We're British people, right? We're ridiculously dry, sarcastic people. But Russian people don't really get that, especially if it's a childish sarcasm. If I tell a childish joke that's really sarcastic to my friends who are my age, then they'll be like, Sam, grow up, act your age. It's not appropriate for somebody your age to be joking about stupid things like that. And this is a bit weird because I want to act and be myself, but what happens is you start to become somebody else when you come to Russia, because after being here for so long, you change and you become a different person. And then you're kind of stuck between two people. When you go to the UK, or you go back home, wherever you're from, you'll start to become the person that you were a little bit before. And then when you come here, you'll adapt to your environment, which is interesting because if I go on a date, my friends ask me, how did it go? They'll say, Sam, please tell me you didn't say any jokes, because they're convinced that if I say any jokes that are childish and sarcastic, then the girl will just think I'm stupid and won't want to see me again. But every now and again, I'll speak to some foreigners in Russia and you get to be sarcastic, and it's great being sarcastic again. I had a YouTube channel come and make some videos with me. I think it was, when was it? Just before Christmas. And we had such a good time because they're from Canada and from Australia and they live in the US. So it was really great. It was, what's the channel called? I can't remember. That's it, Discover Connections. And those guys, you know, the banter we had with those guys just reminded me of what it was like to live in the UK before, with these people that you can just joke with all the time. Now, two ridiculously childish kind of jokes that people in the UK do, and I'm 46 years old, but my mates will still occasionally do this, and they are the fart game and hitting people in the balls. Now, obviously, these are very man things rather than female things, I get that. In the UK, if your mate is relaxing, watching TV from maybe 5 or 6 meters away, and you've got something that's, I don't know, maybe a tennis ball or something like that in your hand, then the chances are that you'll guide that tennis ball exactly so it hits them in the balls. I know it's painful and it's very childish, but this is still something that men do, especially if they've had a couple of beers. It's for some reason funny. But in Russia, this is not funny. This will never be accepted. People will be really angry if you do that. Occasionally, I will throw some random objects into my friends' balls just to, I don't know, amuse myself, and they are not pleased, and I have to remember that, yeah, it's not a thing that's accepted in any way. It's like that scene on American Pie. What's the capital of Thailand? Bangkok. And then the next one is farting in the face of your friend. Now I know I'm 46 years old, I shouldn't be doing this, but again, if your mate falls asleep on the sofa, you can see me smiling already, falls asleep on the sofa, or he's watching a film and he's not prepared, and you can just walk past and do a quick fart in his face. You know, this is like a stupid thing that they do in the UK, you do in the US as well. I think my probably favourite comedian ever was Leslie Nielsen, and that's something that he did all the way until his death. He had this little fart machine that he'd walk around and he'd go on TV shows and he'd press it and make stupid fart noises. But in Russia, that can't happen, you know. People do not think that's funny at all. Every now and again I'll do, so maybe stupid things like I'll buy a whoopee cushion and I'll put it under my friend's seat, or perhaps I will buy some fake dog poo and put it in my friend's car on the seat, or something like that, just because I'm a big kid. In the UK, if you go out to a bar or to a club or to the pub, then you quite often say to your mates, get a round in. Whose round is it? You take turns in buying drinks, and so it's his round, then it's his round, or then it's your round, right? And there's always some guy that tries to get out of buying his round. A round is simply a round of drinks. It's your turn to buy the drinks. But in Russia, more often than not, everything is table service. Even if you're sitting at the bar, you'll drink as much as you want, and then you'll get the bill at the end of the night. And perhaps you can split the bill, or someone will pay the bill this time and then you'll pay for it next time. But you don't have that who's getting in around. Unless, I guess, you go to maybe a club where, you know, you're dancing or whatever. But typically, if you go to a bar in Russia, then it's always going to be table service. And quite often you'll go to the bar and there'll be no space because all the tables are full. And if that was the UK, then you just go and buy a drink and stand around. But in Russia, typically, no space at the tables means no space in the bar. The next habit that I've lost is something that I don't even know if you guys do this in the UK or the US anymore, and that is washing your car on a Sunday morning. A Sunday was always the day off where all the shops were closed, but even when I was a teenager in my late teen years and my early 20s, I would wash and wax my car at a weekend. I don't think people do that anymore. In Russia, we just go to a car wash. We don't clean the car at home. I don't know anyone at all, I don't think, that cleans the car at home. So that is something that I've lost. Perhaps we've all lost that to history. Does anyone clean their cars at home anymore? Let me know. In Russia, people seem to put everything in the fridge. They definitely put eggs in the fridge. Eggs are stored in the fridge, whereas in the UK, they're stored in the carton in a cupboard. And this is weird. I remember when I used to have a cleaner that would come around once a week, and she would clean my house for me, and things had disappeared. I'm like, where are the potatoes? And I'd open the fridge and the potatoes are in the fridge. Like, everything gets put in the fridge. I don't know if Russians are, I guess, keen to preserve everything and don't want to waste things, and so they have this habit of putting everything in the fridge. But I would always store my eggs in the cupboard, and now I also store my eggs in the fridge. So that's another habit that I've lost. There's a few things that are just so British as well that you don't realise that you even care about them until you're in a place where they don't have that. For example, just going to a village pub next to where a cricket match is being played and sitting and drinking beers in the beer garden. It's a completely different feeling in the UK. I'm not saying it's better or worse than Russia. It's just different. Another thing will be to go to a place where, like, every Saturday and Sunday morning, there's football matches taking place in the UK. Just local teams playing against each other, and there's parks where there's like 20 or 25, 30 football pitches, and just loads of teams playing against each other. don't really have that in Russia either. That's like a thing that's kind of missing, I think. Another thing that is now very difficult for me is, oh, the sun's come out, is driving on the left. Whenever I go back to the UK, I find it really difficult. Even when I think about where I'm going to be driving, I think and I plan it as if I'm driving on the right, and I can't remember what it was like to drive on the left, but obviously it's something you get used to. A thing that is very British that I don't do as much now is apologise all the time. British people just constantly apologise, and quite often when I meet British people in Russia, they'll constantly apologise, and I'll think, why are you saying sorry for? You haven't done anything wrong. And it's just something that the British people do, whether it's sincere or not. It's something that if you feel that you're maybe putting someone out, you're doing something wrong, you're making someone's life difficult, then you'll apologise all the time. Whereas in Russia, people don't really apologise unless they've got something to apologise about. A lot of the things in Russia, because things are different in the past, where you would have changed and become different because of the fact that Russia was miles away from where you were from, and there was no access to that information. It was like, you know, that information would stop. Everything that would happen in the UK that you would know would stop, and you'd be in a new place. Obviously, because you've got the internet now, it's still possible to carry on being the same person that you were when you come to Russia. But it's a weird one, because I'm warning you in advance, when you move to a new country, you become a different person. And for a while, you'll feel like you're kind of stuck between two people. And it's very strange, because who you are, if you go to where you're from, you'll feel like a bit of an outsider. And then who you are, where you're living, you feel a bit of an outsider. One of the things that I don't do anymore is cuff people. You've seen me doing it when I give away Kinder eggs, but in the UK, it used to be every time you tell a joke or say something funny or even greet your friends, you'd cuff them. Whereas in Russia, that's not even a thing. Who I am has really changed over these last 20 years. And of course, if I'd have stayed in the UK, maybe who I was would have changed as well over time. But I really feel like I'm two completely different people, and it's kind of weird having almost like a split personality disorder or something. You let me know if you live in a place that's different to where you were born, and how have you changed because of the place that you've moved to? Do you feel like you're kind of two people, one person to the people back home where you were born, and then one person to the people that is your new home where you live now? Let me know in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.